Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name's Savannah Herrenque if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Wednesday, October the 20th. I almost said Tuesday. This week is getting away from me already. And again, October the 20th. Today, I am joined by our political reporter, Mike Kaysen. And Mike is here today to talk about some news that came out yesterday that you might have heard of. And that is another person joining the race for the U.S. Senate seat. Now, we know that Senator Richard Shelby, longtime Alabama senator, will be leaving that seat next year. And there have been a lot of people who have expressed interest in that seat. We have the list of names who have qualified to run for that seat. And again, we have a new contender who joined the race yesterday, and that is Mike Durant. Now, if you know that name, which you might, you would know him either from his ties in the Huntsville community. He has a business in Huntsville, or from him being depicted in a book and a movie called Black Hawk Down. We know that Durant was an Army pilot who was shot down in a Black Hawk helicopter in Somalia in 1993 and was held as a prisoner of war for 11 days. So, Mike, I know that we've got a lot to break down here. That was a really quick overview of all of this. But Mike Durant announced his run for Senate yesterday. And we know that, again, that primary is coming up next year, in May of next year, I believe. So what do we know so far about Mike Durant and about what he announced yesterday?
Don't know very much, really. I haven't talked to him. None of the other candidates sent out statements or anything responding to him. He'll have an impact. He's certainly got a great resume, and it's hard to imagine a better way to enter a race than saying, "Oh, he was an Army aviator and had the heroic story from Somalia." I talked to Jess Brown this morning, a retired political science professor from Athens State University, who's a very astute observer of politics in Alabama. And his initial thought is, one, it's too early to really know, but two, he thought that this helps Mo Brooks, who is, believed to be the front runner in this race, because Mo Brooks has former President Trump's endorsement, and he has the name recognition advantage. And Jess Brown's opinion is that anything that takes votes away or distracts from the other candidates helps Mo Brooks as the front runner.
Right. And that's something I know since yesterday when your story published, that's something we, at least in our newsroom, have been talking about. I'm sure people have been talking about as well. So Mike Durant, again, he owns a business in Huntsville. He, after his retirement from the military, moved to the Huntsville-Madison area, started that business. So he has been there for a little while now. Again, his tale of being shot down in that Black Hawk helicopter. It started in Somalia in 1993. Again, that is where he was held as prisoner of war for 11 days. And then I believe he spent over 20 years in the military, retired, came to North Alabama. So he is probably pretty well known up there, Mike. I think that's fair to say, but he has not run for a big political seat before. So this is something new for Mike Durant. So he mentioned yesterday in his statement something along the lines of that former President Donald Trump really paved the way for some outsiders to come in to the field of politics. So tell us a little bit more about that statement.
Well, yes, he did. And he would, I guess he could certainly make the argument that he's an outsider. And he did make that statement. I guess it remains to be seen whether, so as I mentioned, Brooks has the Trump endorsement. So I guess the problem for Durant will be how much he'll be able to build on this initial announcement, which certainly is. Certainly gets people's attention, and people are going to, respect this guy's military service and so forth. But I guess the key is whether he can build on that and get some name recognition, because although almost everybody is familiar with Black Hawk Down, I don't know that Mike Durant himself is that well known outside of the Huntsville area, where he does have a big company, and, he's won awards from the Chamber of Commerce and that sort of thing. So he's got some recognition there, but statewide, I think he has the same problem that all the candidates other than Mo Brooks has, and that's name recognition.
Which we know is a top thing really in politics, especially when you are running for a seat on the national level. Now, I pulled up your story yesterday, Mike, on my phone here because I wanted to read that statement. So this is that statement that Mike Durant released yesterday. He said, quote, President Trump showed us what's possible when outsiders step forward and take on the insiders and the politicians. I've spent my life either in service to my nation or focused on growing a successful business in Alabama. I'm not going to sit idly by while Joe Biden and the career politicians wreck the country that I love. I'm signing up for one more tour of duty. I am running for U.S. Senate. So he does mention former President Donald Trump again in that statement, but we know that Trump has already endorsed Mo Brooks. So here is what we know about who's already in this field that Mike Durant is joining. So we have, again, current Representative Mo Brooks, who will be, again, running for that Senate seat. He's currently a representative that will leave his spot open as well. We also have Katie Britt, who has formerly worked for Senator Richard Shelby. We have Linda Blanchard and Jessica Taylor. Now, those are all on the Republican side. Mike, I don't know that we've had really any reliable polling at this point, but what can you tell us about that field and who is kind of the front runner in that field?
I haven't seen polling, but the people I talk to say that Brooks is clearly the front runner. Although Britt, has raised the most money. She's raised more money than Brooks, and she's getting her name out there. But I think she still has some catching up to do. The Trump endorsement is not necessarily decisive. We saw him endorse Luther Strange in 2017, and Roy Moore defeated Strange, and then we saw him endorse Moore, and Doug Jones defeated Moore. So. But it certainly helps. It's certainly a factor, and for that reason, and also the January 6th, with the events of January 6th, although Mo Brooks may cast Mo Brooks in a negative light for many across the nation. In the Alabama Republican primary, what happened that day is his support for Trump and his not backing down from those words and so forth. That probably helps him in the Republican primary.
That's a good point. And I think a lot of people, you mentioned that maybe people outside of Alabama and outside of the Alabama GOP probably look at those January 6th comments from Representative Mo Brooks in a different way than people in Alabama do. We know that Alabama overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We know that Alabama is a red state. So you look at this field and you might have somebody maybe in DC or in other parts of the country look at these names and say, well, Katie Britt is very qualified, or look at Mike Durant and say, look, it is indisputable, his background, his service, again, to this country. You cannot dispute that. And again, these same people might say, look, he would be a great choice because of, again, his background, that Katie Britt would be a great choice because of her background. But then they are also not taking into account the people in Alabama and the voters in Alabama and the way that they think, the way that they vote. So I always think that is interesting, the different kind of lenses that you can view these races through as a local voter or as, again, a national commentator or a national politician who is making endorsements. So I think that's a good thing to note. Now, Mike, tell us about when this primary is, when the deadline to file is.
The primary is May 24th, and the deadline to file is January 28th. So the candidates have to be officially qualified by January 28th. So, we're still 7 months away from the election, and, that's one factor is people probably don't pay that much attention until it gets closer. Although I know they're paying some attention, but it's really too early to make any hard predictions about how this is going to go.
Well, and you say that the filing deadline, I believe you said, was January the 28th. So is this late to get into the game, or is this kind of the time when we might see more candidates announce their run? We know that the field's already getting a little bit crowded, but sometimes it doesn't stop people.
I wouldn't think it would hurt Durant by waiting till this time because as I said, 7 more months, and I wonder how much attention people are paying, and if he can raise. A key point is will he raise the money, or will he spend a lot? I don't know how much personal wealth he has, but will he spend a lot of that to try to get his name recognition out there? But I think if he can raise money, if he has the money to do that, I think he still has time to to generate some name recognition.
That's a good point. So this is kind of that time where you get your name out there, you get your money in order to see, look, can I do this? Can I afford this? And can I afford to be a contender, especially against people like Katie Britt, who has the most money so far in this campaign, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm sure you do, Mike, but has a good amount of money in that chest. And then Mo Brooks, who is riding on that name recognition, riding on his just type of recognition across Alabama, whether people like him or not, they know his name.
Right. And Katie Britt may be making some inroads in the name recognition. I've seen more billboards out there of her, and I've seen signs for her for some time, but yard signs and so forth. But I'm seeing more billboards. She's moving in that direction.
And again, like you said, Mike Durant might have name recognition when it comes to people realizing, oh, that is the pilot from Black Hawk Down. When he attaches himself to that, it kind of gives you that light bulb moment, right? You say, oh,
Right.
I know that person. But sometimes the name just by itself, if you say Mike Durant, we don't know how people, especially outside of North Alabama, have that recognition. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Mike, have you gotten any type of feedback since you published that story on his announcement yesterday about people either being surprised or maybe people expecting him to get into this race?
No, I really have not gotten any feedback. One thing I noticed just doing a little research online this morning, he's not brand new to politics. In 2008, when John McCain ran against Barack Obama, you can find a couple of stories online where Mike Durant spoke for the McCain campaign. He had some comments critical of Joe Biden, who was Obama's running mate, and also of then Senator Obama. So he was involved to some extent in the John McCain campaign in 2008. I don't know the extent of it. Of course, they have the shared experience of both being prisoners of war, he and McCain.
Absolutely,
And
and that's something.
I don't know if this is means anything, but as you know, Trump and McCain were not political allies, even though they were both Republicans. So I don't know how that affects. I don't know how that affects Durant's view of Trump, if at all.
And that's a good point there to make. Again, that if Durant spoke on behalf of that McCain campaign, it will be interesting to see if the McCain family or if McCain backers decide that they want to back Mike Durant. And again, you make the comment of former President Trump not being on the same page. I think it's fair to say with McCain and making some very disparaging comments about prisoners of war. We have to see, is that going to come into play here with Mike Durant, who was a prisoner of war in Somalia? Interesting comment here as well from a viewer named Aaron, who says that he's voted for Trump since 2016. He said, but no one, not even Trump, will tell me how to cast my vote. So I think that's interesting, Mike, because I wonder how many people feel the same way. Like Aaron might say, look, I really support X politician, but their endorsement doesn't mean as much to me. I want to look at the candidates that are running, not the person who is just going to support a candidate who is running. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see as well.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
we're going to leave.
I think endorsements may be overrated in their value, but the Trump endorsement probably has more value than most any endorsement in a Republican primary. I guess that's kind of.
And especially in, again, Alabama, such a state that it's overwhelmingly supported Trump and is overwhelmingly red as well. So, Mike, there's going to be a lot here to follow in the next couple of months. Again, I know that Mike Durant just announced yesterday, so I know we're jumping pretty quickly on talking about some of these things. We're probably a little ahead of the curve. We've got to wait for some more of this information to come out, but we're going to leave the information that you published yesterday here in our comment thread so people can read about that, read about Mike Durant and his history as well. Now, we're going to leave that here. I know you're going to be following this. Just as a reminder, the filing deadline is January 28th, so we could see more people enter this crowded field already. And then the primary is May the 24th. So I think you said about 7 months away is that primary. So it seems very far away. But again, this is a big race. Richard Shelby has held that seat for a very long time. So this could bring some real change to Alabama.
Right. Yeah, it's a big race for the state. It certainly is. And whoever wins the Republican nomination is, is the odds-on favorite to hold that seat. And
Right.
it could be a seat that's held for a long time. So there's a lot at
Right.
stake.
And again, just to reiterate, I had somebody say, is Mike running as a Republican or a Democrat from Dana? And yes, Mike is running as in the Republican primary, Mike Durant, running in the Republican primary. That date is May the 24th, when you will cast your ballot in that primary if you choose to do so. So again, a lot of things happening pretty quickly. I know it seems like May is so far off, but it's not. I mean, this year is almost over, which is kind of crazy to think about. So time, I guess, is just moving faster.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for explaining all of this to us, for breaking it down. I know you will keep us updated on AL.com.
Thanks for having me, Ivana. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Everybody, thank you so much for all of your comments, for watching. If you have other questions, comments, feel free to email them to myself or to Mike Kaysen, which is mkaysen@al.com. It's a lot easier to say than mine. I will leave mine here in the comments as well, so you have that. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.